Hello, welcome to my presentation on emotional disturbance. So the definition of emotional disturbance, according to the IDEA, is emotional disturbance means a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects child's educational performance, an inability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors, an inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers, inappropriate types of behaviors or feelings under normal circumstances, a general pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression, a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. So that's the IDEA definition. As far as when you're referring to special education and special education services, but really when they talk about emotional disturbance, they're talking about emotional behavior disorders. So emotional behavior disorders have various diagnoses in a child. They can range from anxiety disorders to eating disorders. And some of the common behaviors we see in children who have a behavioral or emotional disorder are hyperactivity, aggression, withdrawal from family and peers, trouble solving everyday conflict, and also difficulty learning that isn't explained by traditional exceptionalities. So again, the age range of diagnosis can vary because it's such a broad spectrum, but we have seen indicators of depression in as early as 3 years old. And about 17.4 million children are diagnosed with a condition that would be considered an emotional disturbance by the IDEA if they are screened and offered services. So some of the current interventions for emotional disturbances, so the children would be labeled through special education assessments as emotionally disturbed, and then they would start receiving services through their individualized education plan. So when they're establishing a IEP for emotional disturbance, the accommodations and the modifications should be multifaceted, since the symptoms and needs of children with emotional behavior disorder is very broad. They should be placed in the least restrictive environment that's conducive to their development and well-being. So teachers in the classroom, instructional modifications can include presenting lectures in short chunks of time with breaks in between, grabbing attention with instructional tools such as interesting imagery or videos, allowing students extra time to complete a task, and instead of making one large assignment, put it into smaller multiple assignments. Teachers can also follow up challenging activities with low effort, interesting ones. For example, maybe, after giving a test with that features long essay questions, maybe you can give all the children in the classroom the opportunity to create a PowerPoint on the subject and let them be creative, or something like that that would benefit all students, give them a brain break. So those are interventions that could be implemented in a general education classroom for children who have an emotional disturbance. But my center is called the Center of Transition for Young Ladies. And it would serve young women in the community that are transitioning from the 5th grade into middle school. And what I've learned through the research that I've done for this project is that all interventions, when we're looking at gender specific interventions, they should be relational, because that is what female young girls in particular who have emotional behavior disorders respond to. So in this room specifically, one of the interventions that we learned would be to give clear rules and to give basic rules in the center. So this would be the wall in the main meeting room in the center. It would have comfortable couches and pillows for young ladies to be able to interact and build relationships with each other through conversation, group therapy, book clubs, things like that. And here are rules: center expectations, very simple rules: stay inside the gate, sign into buildings, be kind to each other. If it's not allowed at home, it isn't allowed here. One of the interventions that they discover through juvenile detention centers is mentorships. Mentorships for young ladies are great interventions that saw positive results. So I have here some mentors of mine that I would be able to share with the young ladies. I have AOC, Leslie Nope, and Maria Montessori. One of the suggestions that I found in research that were gender-specific interventions was to make a place, an environment where the young ladies were feel as if they are special, make them feel like they are going to be able to connect to this environment. So here you see we have really really natural colors and natural materials in the center. The young ladies will be able to decorate these walls in their own personal work, drawings or essays or their own posters, their own interests. So really it's just about creating a space that's specifically for them. And over here, what I'll talk about later is journaling. We would have journals for every girl enrolled in the center because it's been proven that monitoring both negative and positive emotions can be beneficial for just self-reflection and for developing a positive self-concept. So another important factor that we found was that isolation can help children who have emotional or behavior disorder. An area in the center where they can go to be alone if they're feeling overwhelmed, if they need to take a deep breath, if they want to read a book, if they want to write in their journal, or if they are just tired. We'll have spaces like this where they can nap, relax, and be secluded. So here are a couple of recommendations that I found through sites that talked about emotional behavior disorder for both genders. These are not gender specific, but they can definitely be modified to accommodate the young girls in the center. So it says, keep rules and directions clear and simple. In the group center, a wall with 4 simple rules will be clearly on display for all girls in the center to have access to. Recommendation 2, documented self-monitoring of behaviors. Students will be given journals during their time in the program. Students will be encouraged to note instances that they feel certain emotions such as anxious or happy. Again, in that giant room, we'll have journal shelves where they can go and have access to their journals anytime they need. Recommendation 3, room should be painted in neutral tones and adorned with natural calming materials. According to a child with needs, children with emotional disturbances can easily lose focus. By creating an environment that is not distracting, they can focus on materials. So again, in that room, let me go ahead and go back really quick. So here we can see that we have adorned the room in natural, non-distracting tones. Everything is very calm, not a lot of distractions here other than the materials, the tables to study, and everything is just very calming. So recommendation 4, we want to provide a space of inclusion, which is what I showed you with the beds and the books. While our goal is to provide young women with social supports and skills that will follow her into middle school, the space should have areas where she can decompress and have a moment alone. And finally, recommendation 5, encouraging young ladies to spend time in nature by creating a beautiful outdoor space. According to Child Mind Institute, most of the studies agreed that kids who play outside are smarter, happier, more attentive, and less anxious than kids who spend more time indoors. So those are my recommendations that we would try to implement at our center. And here is my reference pages. We have Why Kids Need to Spend Time in Nature from the Child Mind Institute. We have a journal, peer-reviewed journal, Changing Behaviors by Changing the Classroom Environment, Teaching Exceptional Children. We have A Child with Needs, which is a blog by a parent who works in early intervention and has a child with exceptionalities, emotional behavior disorder, accommodations, and modifications. We have Positive Behavior Strategies for Students with EBD and Need Supported for Teachers and Paraprofessionals. And this was a really interesting one. Riverside County Special Education Local Plan Area. So that was interesting to me because I actually live and plan on working in Riverside County. So that was a really great source of information for me. Then our continued references, Tips for Handling Emotional Behavior Disorder in Classroom by the Resilient Educator. Another blog, great blog, talks about real life experiences in the classroom. And then this one, PACER, which is a great resource from families, Children Mental Health and Emotional or Behavior Disorder Project. And this is about navigating the education system. So this would be a great resource for parents. And then another great resource for parents, the Center for Parent Information and Resources. And this is also a general overview of emotional disturbance. Diagnosing Early Onset Depression in Young Children, Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. So this is how we know that depression can be seen in as early as 3 years old. And finally, we have Exceptional Learners: An Introduction to Special Education, which is our amazing, wonderful textbook. Okay. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to really dig into this diagnosis. I learned a lot from doing this project. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.